science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.
Evidence is evidence. It's public. Everybody can look at the evidence and assess it, and eventually, if there's enough evidence, come to the same conclusion.
For newcomers and old-timers alike, the Chloe Sanctuary hopes to give you insight into the health and happiness of your companion parrots. We hope to help you build happy homes using reliable and proven tools. The best homes are built on a rock-solid foundation. And the best foundation for a happy home is the bedrock of science. When we stand on the shoulders of giants, the scientists who have worked long and diligently to understand our companions, we can reach new heights of understanding. And understanding is the key to success. What does avian veterinary medicine have to tell us about our feathered friends? How can we prevent illness, see the signs of disease before it's too late, and care for our birds through ill health? What light does behavioral science shed on their nature, needs, and hopes? How can the tools of behavior shaping make our homes happier for us and our companions? How can we deal with biting, screaming, or other misbehavior? What is it like to live among parrots? Let them roam around about you and share a life with them. How much freedom do you give them? What happens if you form a bond of trust with them? Watch and see what understanding their true nature can do for you. Come with us on a journey as we do more than examine a parrot's world. We live in it. Make some popcorn and bring in a few wood blocks. Let everyone have something to chew and a comfortable place to perch. Cockatude is a presentation of the Chloe Sanctuary for Parrots and Cockatoos, a nonprofit charity dedicated to the empowerment of captive parrots and public awareness.
Hi, this is a little forward to our upcoming video here. Just wanted to let you know we're going to cover a lot of material in this particular video, and just let it glide over your head. Grab whatever little gems you can from the video, kind of like looking for gems in the desert. You're going to find some, but there's a lot of material. Just don't let the amount of material overwhelm you. If you have a strong interest in learning this material, this is a good introduction, but you need to take a class with a trained professional, and you can do that over the phone and over the internet with Dr. Friedman. And you'll see in the episode where we show you her website. If you wish to go and take her class, I'm not affiliated with Dr. Friedman. I took her class in 2008, and it's been life-changing for me. You see how I work with these guys. And if you have the money, it's not inexpensive. Even perhaps if you need the continuing education credits, you can get 22 of those from this class. So you get an idea. It's not the easiest class in the world, but once you come out of the meat grinder on the other side, you can do some incredible things with these guys. So just relax, watch it, pick up whatever gems you can. So here we go, Cockatude 42. Hi, and welcome to Cockatude 42. Inspector Tuesday, solving the mystery of parrot training. And today we have with us a rather cacophonous group. Yes, we do. We have Coco, who's best known for disturbing the whole videos with constant noise because she doesn't like noise. We have Babaloo, also a.k.a. Inspector Tuesday. Coco, calm down. And Beaches sitting up on my foot here. Snowball, that's Snowbird. Hi, Snowball. And Chloe Bird. And we have Sugar sitting up on a big perch. Sugar Bird. Hey, Sugar. Hey, yo. Hi. Oh, hold on. Did I say Sugar? Hi, Beaches. right, Mander? He's in charge of making noise, tearing up paper and that kind of thing. So, hello, Peaches. Hello. And hello, Coco. Yes, it's good to have you in here again. Cecil was just a little too out of sorts to come back here today. He saw the cameras and he went into like attack mode. Like, I don't want these cameras. So I had to put him back in his cage. He'll come out later, right? You all love the Cecil. He's the Elvis of the parrot world. And I tried to bring Roman back, but he's too busy tearing the door apart to want to do that. What are you doing down there, Snowball? First of all, I'm going to show you a video. It's one of our fast food cockatoo videos. It's a mystery, but basically I want you to concentrate on the way the trainer is working with the bird in this video. Okay, you want to concentrate on the way the trainer is working with the bird. And when that's done, we're coming back. Pay close attention to the way the treat is offered and the exact time interval used. Come here, Cause. Come on, Cause. If you have a bird and you want to change their behavior, and you have to watch this closely, you're going to give them a treat at exact intervals. Okay, in this case, every 15 seconds. So I'm going to give her a treat just to keep her from flying off, because she keeps flying off. Now, if she flies off, she doesn't get a treat. So we give her a treat. Very good, Cause. And we wait our 15 seconds. 10. And then we give her a treat. And then you wait another 15 seconds. 15 seconds is just an example. Eventually, we work to make the interval longer. Then we can occasionally just reward the bird regardless of the time interval. And give them their treat. Good boy. And you count down another 15 seconds. He hasn't flown off yet. Doesn't matter what his other behaviors are. Just doesn't want him to fly off. 15 seconds is up. Give him a treat. So you are rewarding them for any other behavior besides the one that you don't want to see. 15 seconds. Now the treat. Once the treat's gone, you start counting 15 seconds again. Now, if you were to fly off, you wouldn't give him anything. Put him back on the perch, wait another 15 seconds. Very good. Very good. You saw the training technique. Did you see the 8 changes in the room? So as you saw in the video, you think you know what you're seeing because you're focused on one thing, but in actuality, you're missing a whole bunch of things that are going on. And that's what happens with us. So when I studied applied behavior analysis when I was first learning, the concept of seeing it all was a difficult one, but you can break it down into steps and it helps. So you just try to see what function behavior plays in a bird's life. When a bird goes down to eat, the function is, getting food into itself, right? Part of that is the taste. Part of that is the sight of something, the excitement of that's something I want to eat. All those things go together. The innate drive, it is an innate drive to want to eat. It's one of the ways we survive, like breathing. So we break these things down into certain things, okay, to observable things. And we've talked in this series about hi Chloe, hi, about observing what actually happens and keeping your eye on and not labeling things, okay?
If you are enjoying our videos, we hope that you can find it in your heart to support our work. It costs between $25,000 to $30,000 a year to care for our flock of heartbroken and abused birds. Most of our birds came with feather destructive disorder. Even a basic exam with blood work costs $300. Medical emergencies cost us thousands a year. We are a non-profit, and donations are tax-deductible to the full extent of the law. We need your support. Birds deserve a happy and healthy life. Become our patron at www.patreon.com/Chloe Sanctuary to support us on a per-video basis, or donate at our webpage today.
So the first thing you want to do is look at an animal's behavior. You've got to observe it, and you have to be able to list, basically write it down or keep it in your head, but what the animal's actually doing. So with Bob, he's chewing wood, okay? Probably he's playing with another toy too. But he will generally manage to get over to my shorts and start cutting holes in them, and 9 times out of 10 I don't know when he's doing that. So he starts off by playing close with toys, and he works in. So the first thing you're looking for is to see the actual behavior they're doing. And then what you need to do is you need to be able to see the things that are causing that behavior. So in this case, the immediate ones would be that I'm sitting here, he's sitting next to me, okay? This is his spot he likes to be in. There aren't any other birds to get in his way. He doesn't have to deal with Roman in the room, or Peaches, or Coco trying to take his spot. So he doesn't have those things to interrupt his behavior. The environment is such, with the cameras out and the birds that are in here, that he's undisturbed, and so he's just doing this behavior. Now, if you were to add another bird into the environment, one that fights for the spot like Cecil, then he will be more interested in dealing with that bird and keeping that bird out of the territory. So you can see how the environment, the setting, this is the spot that he likes to be in. There's wood for him to chew down here. There's toys to play with. So that's where he's going. So you see how this environmental setting sets up the potential for this behavior. Now other things could happen. If a loud noise or coyotes come up and start screeching outside, it could change the behavior. But we're looking at this as the setting for the behavior. Okay. He wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't sitting here. The spot doesn't exist. Now, or there are some what we call distant events or distant settings. He's a certain type of cockatoo. He's a greater sulfur. Greater sulfurs are highly active, okay, busy most of the time. And even in his cage when he's nearly asleep, he's almost always holding on to something like he's going to play with it. So that's something. His sex, he's a male. And males tend to be more active. Not always, but for the most part, they're more active. This is not the time he would be eating. He has a certain routine for the way that he's fed food. So this is not his normal eating time. This is a play time. If I were sitting down like this and he hadn't had breakfast, he probably wouldn't be playing here because it's out of the schedule. It doesn't make sense. It's not something that he would expect. Okay. So again, that goes down to the daily schedule. Is this in the schedule? If it's something that doesn't normally happen in the schedule, it can interrupt. It can change the behavior. And the place that he's enclosed in, this area with the cameras up, him sitting on the couch, the lights bright, which normally doesn't happen. This is all part of the setting environment. And believe me, environment has a lot to do with anything. Now, if you're at work and it's work time, you have a different view of work than if you're at work and it's not work. You're taking someone to show, this is where I work. It's a different kind of behavior that you're going to show, right? You're not going to be acting just the same as you would be if you were actually doing your job. And it's the same with them. Different settings, different schedules. These all affect behavior.
We hope you will consider supporting us on Patreon today. This is how it works. We produce up to 2 videos a month. As a patron, you pledge to give us a donation, whatever you feel is right and meets your budget. Patreon gives us your gift monthly. You can easily set a limit on how much you donate a month. You can change the amount of your pledge at any time. Your gift will allow us to continue bringing you entertaining and informative videos. Patreon.com/Chloe Sanctuary. We look forward to your participation in Cockatude.
Now, if you've got a problem behavior, let's say biting, there are things that happen first before the bite occurs, okay? Bites don't occur if you're not close to the bird. The bird's not going to bite you. So you have to look at those and carefully examine those situations. So if it's a case of you open the cage door and you go to change the food because you can't access it from the outside and the bird lunges at you, you're dealing with cage territoriality there, which is not uncommon. It's less common in cockatoos, but more common in parrots, but it does happen in both. I say parrots, I'm talking about true parrots, old world parrots. So that's the setting event. We call these antecedents, this is just something that comes before. So let's say that you come home from work, you go in the kitchen, you grab a snack, you eat it, you go into the bird, and you say, "Hey, Bob, how are you doing?" And you go to reach in his cage, and he lunges. Okay, if this is the case that this happens when you get home, okay, this is an early antecedent. This is something that it only happens when you get home. You have to look, you have to examine your life, and you have to examine what's happening with your bird. We often don't see that these things occur at certain times or on a certain schedule. So you want to see if it fits a schedule and don't just say, well, it happens just anytime, because the odds are it doesn't. Now, it may not be something like that, an early environment change, like when you walk in the door, an early setting, and it may be something that's like a distant setting event, like you come in. We call that a distant setting event. A setting event is something that sets a behavior, okay. it may be that it could be at almost any time of the day if you open the cage door. That may be the direct setting event, meaning that just as that antecedent happens, in other words, just as that thing happens, then this behavior happens. Okay. That once you have that little bit of knowledge. Okay. It happens at this time. It happens under these circumstances. You have something to work with. As long as you think it's random, it bites randomly, then you don't have anything to work with. You're working on guesses as to what the behavior is. So you need to work it out. Sometimes it takes a video. Sometimes it takes a lot of study. I've looked at videos over and over again when I was taking my my applied behavior analysis training, and you didn't see it right off the bat. I remember one video with this great trainer. He took this bird that had been biting everybody, this yellow naped Amazon. It was biting everybody, and within 5 minutes he had the bird up on his arm. But as I watched it and watched it and watched it, I noticed he did make a mistake. He did pull back the food at one point you're not supposed to pull away. So, but it didn't break anything because he is terribly good, and the bird excused it because he was doing everything else right. But again, by watching it over and over and over again, I caught the mistake. And if you watch yourself over and over again, you're not going up there, no, you're not going to Chloe, we're not doing that, get up on this perch, please, or sit over here, that's fine. Now he pops his head up to look a little bit more. He's not quite as focused on his area. He's like, uh-oh, there's somebody here. So you need to know when, where, and the people involved that this behavior happens to. There's, like with Bob, when he was at the last place he was at before he came here, he got along fine with the children. It was the adults he would threaten. Okay, so you can identify that with, it happens when they're, it happens with adults. It happens with adults when, for example, they come to take him away from the children. So it's when, where, and with whom. These are important. You have to figure that out. You're trying to figure out each of the different steps that precede a particular behavior, because all these causes add up. Results are what drive behavior. So if the result is that he wants to stay, we don't know exactly what he wants, but this is what it looks like. If the result he is seeking is staying with the children, and by threatening the adults he can stay with them longer, now we know what the cause is. So now we know what the cause is. So there may be ways to deal with that. You might be able to offer him a treat to get him away from the children. I mean, I'm saying there's alternatives. As long as you can know what the causes are that lead to a particular behavior, then you can find alternatives to them. So that's what you're trying to do. So if it happens at a certain time of day, if it happens at a particular place, these are things you need to figure out. A person could come into a room, a person could leave a room, and that could cause a bird to have a particular behavior. Little things to us that don't seem like much. Jack just walked out. Well, it might be a big thing to a bird. Jack walks in. This may not be a person the bird prefers to be around. So then you get this kind of like with this. You saw when Snowball got on my lap, how he stopped focusing totally down here and he starts coming up and looking around. So in this case, the presence of another bird close to his little nesting area, his territory, puts him on the alert, and his behaviors change. Then another thing is, when does the animal not do it? When does Bob not do this behavior? Okay, so that you look and see, well, he doesn't do it here in this situation, regardless of what birds are around him, but he does it here if there are birds around. So you start looking at, you want to see, we'll use Bob as an example. Inspector Clouseau here, Inspector Tuso here, as an example. When does he not start looking around to defend his territory? And those are considered successes for him. These are when he's doing the right behaviors that you want, okay, and he's not doing these other behaviors that become an issue. So all this leads us to identifying what the cause of the behavior is. And since behavior, the actions of a bird, the actions of a bird are driven by the results, we can see that if, looking at him here, hi, it's a nice song. That's a good song. Do you have a second verse? Hello, Snowball. Do you have a second verse? You do? That's a good second verse. You have a third verse? No, not usually. You have seconds, but not thirds. I noticed that. Only at night when you're going to bed. Only at night when she's in her night cage does that verse get repeated many, many, many times. I say only. It's rarely that she will do it more than 3 times in this room. In the night room, it could go on for a long time, and then it may turn to her crying behavior. Okay, so these results that the bird are looking for, the bird is looking for. In this case, the results here is Bob playing here with toys. That's the result he's seeking. That's a social behavior. He's seeking the social behavior and his territory. That's my analysis, okay? It's going to be close to the mark, but it may not be exact. So once we've identified that, then we have the basic purpose. We'll keep this territory, be social with me, and play with toys. It's all one loop of things that he's trying to do here. And as soon as someone comes in that threatens that, his behavior changes. So it's the first thing to identify. The root result the bird is seeking. So that drives its action. You're seeking a paycheck when you go to work. That's what drives your action. You stop getting the paycheck, your actions change. I'm out of here. I don't want this job anymore. They threw me out of better bars than this place. So that's what you're seeking. And be open-minded. Be alert. Take video if you can. Don't just assume that you see everything. Just as in that beginning video where it showed there's all these different things that happened in the background. And I don't know anyone who's seen that video that caught them all. In fact, most people didn't even realize they were happening because they were focused on just the training. Just what I was doing with the bird. So all these other things changed in the background and you didn't see them. So don't assume that you see everything. That's the biggest reason people can't work with birds is because they don't see, because they're limited vision. If you're running like a racehorse, you only see what's coming up. You don't see what's behind you, okay? So you don't see your whole circumstances. So don't be a racehorse. Don't wear blinders. So in this case, what you're looking for what they gain by it. In this case, he gains the social. Oh, another song? Pretty song, Peaches. Pretty song. Do you want a stick? Nah, don't want a stick. Good girl. Oh, it's a good girl. Another verse. Very good, Peaches. Come on. Yeah. She is doing this behavior. The results of this behavior is I give her attention. And that may be why she does it in the night room many times, and here she does it just a few times because she actually gets attention. If I'm not in that room, she'll do it over and over again. Just calling her name doesn't do it. I think it's the physical attention she needs. So in this case, socialization, activity, these seem to be the driving factors. Plus, maintaining a territory. These are the driving factors. So you want to try to figure out what those driving factors are. And then, the bird's going to avoid some things too. In this case, it's avoiding what? It's not social. Bob's not socializing with anyone else. He's avoiding this whole area out here. He's got this one focus. So he is avoiding many different behaviors he could be doing in order to do this. So it's possible that some other things, for example, if Snowball gets on my lap, that will start to break that behavior. So the things they're avoiding could possibly be a key to changing the behavior. And sometimes they'll be doing a behavior and they're avoiding things like coming out of their cage or stepping up to go into a cage. So if they're avoiding something, there's a reason they're avoiding it. And the reason that's something that you need to figure out is what's the reason they're avoiding this particular behavior. They may be avoiding the step up because you have them step up and you put them in a cage. You may be able to break that by having them step up and then you take them over and give them a treat and talk to them for 5 minutes. And then you take them over to the cage. So you may be able, I'm just giving an example how knowing the result, in this case, knowing what they're trying to avoid going into the cage, is a key to knowing how to change the behavior. If you go, well, they're trying to avoid going into the cage, well, why don't we make that a different behavior then? Instead of going straight to the cage, maybe we'll give them 5 minutes of fun over here and a treat. Okay? You're just thinking outside the box. You don't want to be a nesting bird. You want to be a bird that gets out and looks at the world. Oh, I think we're talking probably about male eclectus there. Definitely not female eclectus. We like to stay in that tree and take care of the babies and get fed by other birds. So, now there are things they do in the wild, and if you're familiar with that, you know, during the day after they've eaten in the morning, they tend to go and play and sleep. So we call it play. They socialize, they sleep, they'll do silly things. Spin around. I've seen videos of them in Australia spinning around on telephone wires and doing gymnastics and that kind of thing. So some of that kind of behavior is more likely to happen at certain times. In other words, after they've eaten their morning meal and, you know, before they eat their meal at night, or even after that for a little bit. You know. But there are certain times that things are more likely to happen. A bird's more likely to be hungry in the morning after sleeping all night, you know, that kind of thing. So their behavior in the wild, if you learn more about that, and we're not going to cover a lot of that in this one, we'll do that in another video, but if you learn how they act in the wild, and you're going to have a clue as to some of their behavior in captivity. Keep in mind, though, that about 95% of what they do is learned behavior. So there's a lot that they learned as they were being raised by humans after being bred and incubators and hatched and handled by humans. There's a lot of things they missed. Some of the behaviors they would have in the wild aren't going to be there. And the reason they're not going to be there is because they didn't get taught them. They don't have parents, they don't have siblings, and they don't have a whole flock to give them the culture of their world. So, but still, that certain 5%, you know, like the one where they go, this, you know, they're looking for a place to fly. Even if somebody's clipped a bird, which I don't recommend, but even if someone has clipped a bird, they'll still do this. And of course, you have a fight or flight response, and one reason you don't want to clip your bird, because if they can't fly, that leaves only what? Fight. And it's not their normal way of doing things. They're not good at it. So they threaten, they cajole, they do all kinds of things but to try to get what they want, the result. Okay, so their actions are driven by a result they're seeking. So then you want to put all this together. You want to say, okay, Bob attacks Chloe. If Chloe gets too close to his nesting area, he's in his territory, he has his socialization going on, and when Chloe comes over, he doesn't see that he can do the behavior he wants anymore. So at that point, his actions are to try to get her out of the area so that he can go back to what he's doing. And that's, again, we have to make certain assumptions on this, and they may change, because they're going to make, what you're going to do is after you make these assumptions, you're going to test them, okay? You're going to say, okay, that's the case. Now what if I get her over here next to me instead of up here where he can see her? How far? You try to see what's the distance. And what's the distance? And other things are maybe socialization between these two needs to be done. So you need to find some way to socialize them. So there are ways to do that. You can train each of them individually in a certain behavior, and then you can bring them together to share that behavior. There's a lot of things you can do, but you need to get that kind of worked out in your head and test it. And we'll get into the testing, okay? A little bit later on. Okay, so once you've got this figured out, and you have a behavior you don't want them to do, such as, let's say, biting. That's a good example. There's a behavior you don't want them to do. What kind of replacement behavior what can you give them to replace that behavior? So what other behavior can they do instead of biting? Well, chewing on a toy is one. Being social is another. Getting a treat is another. So you want to list what possible replacements they still need, whatever that reason is they're biting. Once you've determined they're biting because they don't want you to get in their cage, okay, they don't want your hand in the cage, what can you do to stop that? Can you, for example, say, well, if they're biting because they don't want the hand in the cage, because that's when it's happening, all right? You've assessed that the bird bites anytime. We're going to just get it down to this one, because there can be a lot of different, outside setting events and environmental antecedents to things. In other words, things that are in the environment that can be leading to this. But we're going to just narrow it down. If anyone puts their hand in the cage and the bird bites, then we have a narrow focus here. So the idea is, if they're playing with a toy, if it's a toy they like, Coco has a favorite, a little foot toy, and you hand it to them, they play with the toy, you can change their food in their cage, no problem. That's one thing. If it's a food treat, that's another thing. Changing the environment. If you open the door, does the bird come out and the bird doesn't bite outside the cage? Okay, can you just open the door and have the bird come out? Okay, you open the door and the bird only comes out part of the time. Can we open the door and offer a treat for the bird to come out? I mean, there's a lot of different things you can try, and you test them, okay? So rather, you basically look at it as the bird does this, biting, when I put my hand in the cage. Rather than that, I could have the bird take a treat, and then I can have my hand in the cage. Or I could have the bird come out of the cage. Come up with a whole bunch of rather thans. Rather than biting when I put my hand in the cage, I could have the bird do this, and list, and just be thoughtful about it. I remember years ago when I was studying paganism. I'm not a pagan, by the way, but I was studying paganism. I love the word because it just means, like people who don't live in a city. But they had a mental technique that you used, and basically you would think of something like a pencil, okay? Now, all the different ways you could use a pencil. And you were supposed to come up with 100 of them. So I could use a pencil as something to prop something up. I could use a pencil for a bookmark. I could use a pencil to scratch my arm with the eraser. And you just go on and on and on, all these different uses of a pencil. And you would do this with common objects. I could use a key. And at first it's really slow. It's like, what can I use a key for? And before long you're just popping out all these different things you could use that one object for. Snowball, that was quite sneaky, but you can't be up there with Chloe. Come on. No. Can't be with Chloe. Nope. We don't let you get next to Chloe. No. I know you're a good boy. And that's my little buddy. Snowball. Let the Snowball. Be nice to him, Bob. Be nice to him. He's a good bird. Be nice. Be nice, Bob. Be nice. Come on. Just bring him. Good boy. They've had a little bit of a tete-a-tete between each other. It's mostly Bob misunderstanding Snowball's actions, I think. So this is good to see. I encouraged it the second I saw that Bob was interested in bringing him. So, and how did I know that? Well, just over time you start to recognize their motions, the way they move their body when they want to do certain things. So this is the first time Bob has preened Snowball in a long time, so this is good. So you write up a summary of all these different things that you could replace the biting behavior with. And that can go for anything, for screaming. Screaming is a good example. You got a bird screaming, you say, oh, well, I can't think of anything to replace it with. What if the bird says hello? So you ignore the bird. That's, as we talked about before, that's called extinction. It doesn't work by itself in most cases. I would never try to use it by itself. So when the bird says hello, you run over and praise them and give them a treat. Or, sometimes praise by itself works, sometimes a treat. After a while, they'll stop screaming because it doesn't get them anything, but they're seeking that result, that treat, so they'll say hello a lot more often. And it works for you too. I saw, I don't watch TV, but I saw a clip on YouTube of some TV show where every time this guy would ask this girl who had just moved in with these people to go do something for him, and when she came back, he'd say, "Oh, would you like a piece of chocolate? Oh, you know, I've got another piece of chocolate." And he kept doing that, and finally the guy next to him goes, "Will you cut it out?" So, but it works, okay? So then you want to put it into like words that, you know, like a sentence that makes sense that you can use. You're going to make a little statement that will work. So in this case, you could say, "When I offer a treat to Bob in his cage, he will eat the treat and he won't bite my hand." Okay? He will eat the treat instead of biting my hand. Or when I give Bob a toy in his cage, he will play with the toy rather than biting my hand. So you write these down, and you know, if one doesn't work, try another. Be creative. We're humans. We got all this gray matter up here. It takes a tremendous amount of blood pressure just to feed that thing. We got to use it, okay? And with these guys, if you use it, you're going to have a great time with them because they're just wonderful creatures, but they're using that brain in their head all the time. And we have to work with them, so we have to be as cagey as they are. It isn't easy, is it, Chloe? No, I know it's not. What are you doing, Pete? You chewing wood? Okay. And even before you get started, it's a good idea to write down what you've tried before. You know, I tried talking softly to it. I tried moving my hand more slowly. I tried having someone else put their hand in there after I got the bandages out and got them all cleaned up. I decided that wasn't a good idea. So you list all the different things you've tried, and then you have your list of what you're going to try. So make sure you're not repeating something you've done before that didn't work. And keep in mind changes in environment, changes in situations. You know, different people in the room, those all have effects. So if you're getting something and it's working, but it suddenly doesn't, look around, see what's going on, realize that, yesterday somebody told me, I put 3 big boxes in the living room. I'd forgotten I'd done that. They said nothing changed, but there were 3 boxes in the living room, and that was disturbing the bird. So it's almost like, it wouldn't be a bad idea to take a picture of your place, where, especially the areas your bird's in, and look back and see if you've changed anything. Because our minds aren't perfect. Our brains are not built so as to make perfect memory. In fact, every time we remember something, we change it. That's all been proven scientifically. Our memories are kind of like Play-Doh. And they change every time we touch them. You actually have to flow a chemical in there to keep it going. If you throw a different chemical in, they've actually been able to give mice a chemical. Mice that knew a maze, and when they were, they'd give it to them as they were entering the maze, they knew, and then they couldn't find their way through it. It actually erased that memory from their mind. So you build new memories, and you have to doubt your own. And it's good if you do, because if you can start doubting yourself that way, you're gonna find that really helps with these guys. So your first strategies, the first things you need to do is kind of look around and say, what can I change? This only happens in this particular environment. Maybe I can change the environment. It only happens when I come home from work. Well, what do I do when I come home from work? Can I change the pattern there? Will that possibly change it? It only happens in this room. Is there something in that room that is stimulating the behavior? So look at all these different potentials and really analyze them, because if you do, for example, with Coco, having the cameras out, I haven't worked with her enough. I should have her in this room with just the stand up. Hi, beautiful song. I'm sorry, you made a moment to say that. Beautiful song. One more. No, that's the crying sound. She wants to be petted. You want to sit on my knee? Oh, good boy. No, sit right there. It's okay. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. I know you want to sit on my hand. I know. You could change when something happens. Okay, what time in the schedule, that may help change the behavior. You may change where the behavior happens in a particular place you take the bird to every day. Well, move them to a different place. The perch usually sits there. Move the perch over here and see if that changes it. See if moving them into a different room changes it. They're in the den, move them into the living room. I'm not talking about their cage, but their perch. So, and then the people they're reacting with. The people that happen to be in the room when it happens. Is there something you can do if it's only when George is in the room that it happens? Then obviously you have to work with, possibly say, George, could you step out while I do this with the bird? I mean, that may be all you need to do. Or if it's a positive behavior you like, but it only happens when George is in the room, hey George, come on in here, I'm going to do this. See, you start to think like that, and then there's just a plentitude. There's a huge number of different things you can do to help them have a different behavior. But you got to get your focus widened, because we tend to be kind of like this, I know I am. Now, another thing too is, there are skills you can teach a bird. I've taught these birds how to spread their wings for the vet, and it's a good example, right? Well, they don't tend to be aggressive at all when they're doing this. So for example, you could teach a bird veterinary skills, like with Bob. I could flip him over on his back, and I can do that with all these birds. I'm not going to do it right now because we have a nice calm room where you can hear me, but you can laugh at me down there. You started. So you can teach them behaviors. For example, step up or wave, or if you can capture a behavior, like they say hello, and you can capture that. You can train behaviors such as shake, or you see me do it with Cecil, where I toss him up in the air and say, do his little song, be Cecil the cockatoo, and I toss him up. And if you've seen it where he's gotten aggressive because the cameras are in here, and I do that, and then it dissipates. So is there something you can teach them that will help them get out of that behavior? And we'll get into training specific behaviors like that later on, but we're dealing with misbehaviors here. It doesn't have to be. You could use this for any kind of behavior, but I'm primarily trying to focus on how you can use this for misbehaviors. But remember, you can create positive behaviors all the way around, and there doesn't even have to be a misbehavior there. You see a particular behavior, and you can bend and twist it a little bit, as long as they still get that result, whatever it is they're shooting for. He's shooting for his little territory and his socialization down here, and as long as I'm able to fulfill that, give him a result that at least matches that, he gets the socialization. If I held him and I petted him, he doesn't tend to want to be petted, but if I did that and played with him with a toy, I could get him away from this situation, and I can move him from one place to another, and he wouldn't be disturbed by it. As long as the result he was looking for was still there, the positive social actions would be there as well. Now, if it's a specific behavior that you're trying to train out, you got to decide who's going to do the training, where it's going to be done, what the replacement behaviors are going to be. You're going to teach them to take a stick with a treat on it, or are you reading my pants again, you toad? So you've got to make those decisions, and you've got to stick to them, okay? You don't want to have multiple people trying to train this behavior in the beginning. So if the bird's a screamer, and you're going to focus with one person doing the training, later on you can generalize it and have other people get involved, as long as they stick to the same procedure. And if you don't think they can stick to the same procedures, they're going to change things, don't do it. Because if they start giving false cues, the bird's going to get confused, and then you have to start over again. Well, you won't start completely over. You will have made headway, and you will be able to get back to, from square one to square 10 pretty fast. but it's just better not to do that. So, and then you got to identify whatever is going to, whatever rewards, reinforcers are going to help the bird get to where it needs to go. Get the bird to the desired behavior. And I highly recommend that you take Dr. Friedman's LLA course if you have the money and you have a background in science, you have some college background, you won't be intimidated by some pretty hard work. I highly recommend it. Dr. Friedman can teach you things that you didn't even know were possible, and basically following the same guidelines she taught me as I take you through this. So, but it's not quite the same coming from me as it is when you're working with a professional who's been training people in the field for years. She's my greatest mentor in behavior with these guys. I mean, I study it all the time, but the ground that I work on was put there by Dr. Susan Friedman. So you can find a lot of information on this on behaviorworks.org. That's her website. I'll mention it again. And if you have the background necessary to be able to follow this kind of thing in a college environment, you really should take this course. It's over the phone and the internet. It's not something that you have to go and attend the class, but don't let that fool you. It's hard work. Worth every bit of it, though. Every penny I paid and all the hard time I put into the study and the learning. So you have to decide what the best rewards are going to be. And again, as I said, you can lay out a tray, put treats on it, and have them pick whatever treat they like. Out of there, the first one they go for is most likely going to be their favorite, so take it out of their diet and use it when you're training them. Some birds prefer to be petted. Always remember that when you give a treat, you should give a secondary reinforcer. And that just means that you give them the reward that they want. In most cases, that's going to be a treat. And then at the same moment you give them the treat, you say good bird or good boy or good girl or whatever, but you stick to the same one. Be consistent, okay? Always be consistent. But decide what rewards you're going to give. What's going to reinforce this new behavior. And of course, part of it is that you want to replace the behavior that's already there with something else that will fit. So there's a certain reward in that anyway. I mean, obviously, if a child wants a Twix bar, but you offer them a Snickers, and they're okay with Snickers, that may just replace that behavior. They're not eating the Twix, now they're eating the Snickers, right? Not that I'm suggesting you should feed your children sugar. I've been around the little rodents when they're all hyped up on sugar. So I'm not really suggesting that. You guys, now they're preening again, see? He was chasing him away yesterday, now he's preening him. 75 in here. So, in most cases, you want to give a reinforcer and a reward, okay, whatever it is, for every correct behavior. So, if they're doing what they should be doing, in other words, Bob comes up, I'll say if I was doing that for this. If Bob came up and was preening him, I would give him a treat just as he started preening. And that would be rewarding him at the exact moment, and I would say, good bird. What I did with him was I petted him and said, good bird. I petted him and let him know, because petting is a reinforcer for Bob, and let him know that his preening snowball was a desired behavior. So figure out what's going to be the best reinforcers, list them down so you know, and if one stops working, you have a list, you just go back and pick the next one. It's critical to have that list. And it's critical to know what you're going to use to reinforce the correct behavior. Now, you may want to reduce behaviors, like if you're reducing the screaming, so you have to decide what you're going to do to reduce it. So, with biting, there's a couple of different ways. I mean, there's lots of different ways. But the two that come to mind to me, incompatible object, a bird can't bite if it has, Bob likes papaya. So if I give him a piece of papaya, he wouldn't bite. Not that he's a biter, he's not, but, well, he can sure threaten you. You know, he doesn't really deliver unless you just wimp out. It's about the only way he's going to deliver to you. He's just perfectly happy giving you the eye, you know. Aren't you, Bob? So when you're reducing behaviors, you have to know what you're going to replace those behaviors with. If a bird is screaming, if you can get them to vocalize something else. With Salamander, his horrible little thing he picked up from Sugar and amplified it 10 times. It's quiet when she does it. It's kind of, but when he does it, it's just awful. I know it sounds a little like you, doesn't it, Salamander? So to reduce that, I chose another sound that he makes. Actually, any other sound. If he goes, he makes his little sound or whatever. Anything he does that is an other sound other than that one, I immediately give him praise for it. And he doesn't need much in the way of food reinforcers. He's a bird that just likes the praise. So I come over, praise him, give him. He doesn't even like to be petted that much. A little bit on the back, not much on the head. He's unusual in that. He doesn't really care for being petted on the head. But so just determine what you can reinforce, what other behavior you can reinforce to get rid of the one you don't want. So you can occur, like with him, I ignored those particular sounds I didn't want, and then the second he makes another sound, I rush over and reinforce it. You know, good bird, you know, and he knows I like that sound. So we don't hear it much anymore, it's almost gone now. So you can use extinction, in other words, ignoring. You can ignore something, but be sure to replace it with something else. That's critical. Know what you're going to replace it with. In some cases, you may have to actually, like a timeout from something they enjoy. If you have a bird that has been fine, but it starts biting or nipping, it's happened a few times when I've been doing videos. I have a bird that just kind of goes south. Take them out for a couple of minutes, bring them back in, and the behavior's gone. So that timeout will work. I don't suggest, and a timeout for a bird's about 2 minutes. So you may occasionally have a bird that needs timeout for a longer period, but that's because it's rare and you shouldn't do it more than a couple of times in a year for any bird. Sometimes with Bob, he has to be left in his cage for a day. But that's no more than a couple of times a year. And that's just when he's just going after everybody. And he just goes like that once in a while, don't you, Bob? And a day in his cage gets him out of it. He'll beat his toys around, slam things around for a whole day. And then the next day he's like, oh, okay, what are we doing? And two, make sure it's a good idea to write it down, but make sure you know exactly what you've been doing, and you can be able to communicate it to others so that when you do want someone else to do this, like, okay, in this situation, with, in this room, with these people in the room, under these circumstances, Bob will do this. Okay? So this is how I deal with it. And you show them exactly. You don't just say, oh, I pull out a stick and give them some peanut butter on it. Don't do that. Take a stick, put the peanut butter on it, and show them how you present it. The exact way, and the facial expression. Show them, and then have them repeat it. Just make it clear to them if they don't do this, then they're going to have a problem, and it probably won't be a problem they're going to enjoy, especially if it's about a biting issue or something like that. So get them to do it a couple of times, make sure they have it down, and just tell them how important it is. Okay. And at first you're probably going to need to record this, keep it written down so you know that you've dealt with these things in a particular order, how you did it. And if things don't work, you have a record saying, well, I did it for 5 days and I did it like this and there was no response at all. Okay? Or I did it once and they wouldn't have anything to do with it. Then you go on to your alternate, try another one. I did this for, you write it down, everything was fine, then I noticed a little change, and start to know what is the bird doing? What does the action the bird is doing, what result is it driving toward? Okay, in some cases a bird will nip to try to get back in its own cage. I had someone who wrote me and said that their bird was, started biting. So they were putting it back in the cage. And I said, did you consider that possibly the bird wants to go back to its cage? Now, if the bird wants to go back to its cage and it nips at you and you put it back in the cage, you've just reinforced that behavior. So you're training your bird to bite you so you'll put it back in the cage. So to test that out, if the bird nips you, you put it somewhere else. Not back in the cage, on a perch in a different room. To see what they do and start to analyze it. What are they shooting for? What's the result they're looking for? Because we unconsciously, without realizing it, we reinforce behaviors we don't want them to do. Okay? Well, they did this out of the room, into their cage. Well, maybe that's where they wanted to go. It's possible they were hungry or they were thirsty and there wasn't something around for them to get, so that was one way of getting back to the cage. Keep it in mind. And it really does make a big difference when you start seeing that you often reinforce things you don't want. And if you can keep track, if you have, like we were using him as biting as an example, if he lunged and tried to bite 5 times one day, write it down. It was 5 times a day. As you're working with him, right? It was 3 times this day. It's 4 times. And if you look at the chart, and it's gone from 5 to 3 to 4. To 3, to 4, to 2, to 3, to 4, to 2, to 1, to 2, to 0, to 1, to 2, to 0, to 1. You see where it's going if you chart it. But we tend to forget. The human mind is set up to follow the hits and not the misses. That's why people think things that come in threes. Because they count the first bad thing. They don't see the good things, the couple of good things that happen. They don't see them. They don't count them. Then the next bad things, they count that. That's 2. Then, other things happen, and they count the third one. That's 3. That's the end. And they're ready to start the sequence all over again. They're only counting the hits. And it's the same with these guys. So if you see that, Bob bit me several times today, that doesn't tell you anything. If you know that he bit you 4 times, or let's say 3 times that day, but when you started this process, he was biting 5 or 6 times a day. You can see how that goes down if you chart it. That's why we chart things. So try to chart things out. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Take a composition book and say, so many times today, or when it happens, go over and put a check mark. At the end of the day, you got 5 check marks. 5. And you can write down little notes like, it wasn't as severe as usual, or it was just a minor nip, and that kind of thing. You write that kind of thing down. This whole thing will be you can consider what you've done a success if at the end you have either increased the behavior that you want, you're looking to increase the behavior, or you've decreased the behavior that you don't. Okay, and it's a success if you've reduced it, and you've decided, if I can get this down to 1 time a day, I'm happy with it. Okay, maybe less, but I have to get to one time. If you get to that point, you've decided that's what your success level is. That's what you keep striving for. Every action is driven by the desire for a result. Okay, they're looking for this result, so they do these actions. So if it doesn't work, what you're working on doesn't work, then you must have missed something. So go back and examine it again. And if you do that, after a while, you can start to do this on the fly. At first, you need to really have it all written down. But I don't write everything down. I'll tell you the truth. I don't do that much anymore. But I follow the principles, and if I get stuck, then I'll put everything down, and I'll say this was the environment. These were the setting events. This happens, and then then this behavior happens, and then was there anybody else around in the room? Who, what, and where? The who, what, and where needs to be done. I'll work through all the, what about if I do this? And what about if we do that? We reward this, we extinguish this, and replacing it with this, and on and on and on. I'll write it all down, and I'll keep a little note on it. That's if it gets really complicated. But for the most part, I can do it in my head now, thanks to Dr. Susan Friedman. So again, her website is www.behaviorworks.org. She has a lot of free written materials you can read and give you an idea somewhat where her class leads. Okay, it's a basic class on applied behavior analysis. It's more of a sophomore class in college, but you can learn a lot by reading those. If you feel you have the necessary requisites to take the class, fine. If not, you can discuss it with her. She will definitely talk to you through email and maybe even over the phone just to see if you could handle it. But it's well worth doing if you want to work with these guys. Yeah, I realized I was hopelessly lost. I mean, I had to have Chloe teach me to, she climbed down my chest and she had to put her eye on something if she wanted it. Now if she wants something, it's just like that subtle motion, slight turn of the head and eyes down on an object. She doesn't want it, she just turns her eyes away and turns her head slightly. Most people wouldn't even see the motion. But she taught me. So, and Dr. Friedman taught me how to be able to do that with all these guys. So this is not a paid advertisement. I'm just telling you that if you really want to know this stuff and you want to be able to use it with full effectiveness, I suggest you take her course. What do you say, Inspector Tuso? You want to say goodbye to the people? Do you want to say goodbye to the people? Inspector Tuso. Come on, Bob, say goodbye to the people. Babaloo. 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 Nose dive. We'll see you next time. Hi, and welcome to Coco. Hi. The second I say hi, you go, Coco, no. Stop. Stop it, sweetie. I get to say hi. I get to say it. Hi, and welcome to Coco. Silly girl. No. Calm down. Hi. Coco. Hi. You're gonna have me laughing to death. Stop it, you silly. Hi. I have to say it to you. Hi. I'll say it to you. Hi.
We welcome your feedback on our videos. We look forward to your insights, tips, questions, stories, and pictures. You can email us at cockatude@chloesanctuary.org, reach us on Twitter @Chloe Sanctuary, and join with us on our Facebook Chloe Sanctuary page.
Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.